Good day everyone, this is Jaquilo Silagos from BSED Mathematics 2. Have you ever wondered why there are private schools and why students, even before, choose to enroll in different private schools? Well, studies show that every year there is an increase in the number of students entering public schools due to their incapacity to pay high tuition fees in private schools. Primarily, this is the reason why public schools are established to help the poor Filipinos who desire to attain such level of literacy. However, because of the increasing growth of their population, there comes a big dilemma in terms of accommodating these students. It results to the problem that these public schools could no longer accommodate the great bulk of students. It is unfortunate to say that public schools could not any longer accept more students because of the lack of resources and facilities such as classrooms, desks, textbooks, and even teachers. In short, there has been too little resources for too many students who are in need of necessary attention. To address the situation, certain House bills were put into law such as Republic Act No. 6728 or what is most commonly known as the E-GASTPE Act or the Government Assistance to Students and Teachers in Private Education Act, wherein it offers many opportunities for the poor students who cannot afford to study in private schools. Hence, they are no longer limited to public schools. Rather, they are encouraged and are given the chance to study in such private schools by providing them with financial assistance through tuition fee supplements. However, there is still a need to further improve the system and increase the amount of assistance to students, grantees, and the teachers by amending some parts of the sections of the E-GASTPE law so that it can become more responsive to the needs of the students, the teachers, and the schools. And that is what we are going to tackle today. Republic Act No. 8545 or the Expanded Government Assistance to Students and Teachers in Private Education Act or what is most commonly known as the E-GASTPE law. Again, Republic Act 8545 or the E-GASTPE law is an act amending Republic Act No. 6728, otherwise known as an act providing government assistance to students and teachers in private education and appropriating funds therefore, establishing a fund for the purpose of subsidizing salaries of private school teachers and appropriating funds therefore. This means that Republic Act No. 8545 provides the legal basis for state-funded programs of financial assistance to stakeholders in private education. Moving further, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the Philippines in Congress assembled, Section 1, Republic Act No. 6728, otherwise known as the Government Assistance to Students and Teachers in Private Education Act, is hereby amended to read as follows. Section 1 or the title. This act shall be known as the Expanded Government Assistance to Students and Teachers in Private Education Act. Hence, it is called the E-GASTPE law. Section 2 or the Declaration of Policy. It is a declared policy of the state in conformity with the mandate of the Constitution to promote and make quality education accessible to all Filipino citizens. The state also hereby recognizes the complementary roles of public and private educational institutions in the educational system and the invaluable contribution that the private schools have made and will make to education. For these purposes, the state shall provide the mechanisms to improve quality in private education by maximizing the use of existing resources of private education, recognizing in the process the government's responsibility to provide basic elementary and secondary education, post-secondary vocational and technical education, and higher education as having priority over its other functions. What was amended under Section 2 or the Declaration of Policy from previous Act, Republic Act No. 6728, is that it only recognizes in the process the government responsibility to provide basic and elementary and secondary education as having priority over its function to provide for higher education. But in Republic Act No. 8545, it states that recognizing in the process the government's responsibility to provide basic elementary and secondary education, post-secondary vocational and technical education, and higher education as having priority over its other functions. It also defined elementary education, secondary education, and post-secondary education. And it states that elementary education is the first 6 years of basic education, excluding preschool and grade 7, the completion of which is attested by a certificate issued by or with permission of the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports, or the DACS. On the other hand, secondary education is the next 4 years of basic education, the completion of which is attested by a high school diploma issued by or with permission of the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports. And post-secondary education may be education and training in non-degree vocational and technical courses offered in post-secondary vocational and technical institutions, or education in degree courses offered by higher educational institutions, the completion of which are attested by a certificate or diploma issued by or with permission of the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, or the TESDA, or the Commission on Higher Education, or CHED, respectively. Section 3 are the criteria for assistance. The programs for assistance shall be based on a set of criteria which shall include, among others, first, tuition fees charged by the schools. Second, the socio-economic needs of each region, giving priority to the Social Reform Agenda, or SRA, provinces. Just a brief background about the Social Reform Agenda. It was formally launched in September 1994. It constitutes government's response to poverty. It identified 20 out of the country's 77 provinces that are suffering from extreme poverty. And under Republic Act No. 8545, these provinces are prioritized. Next is the overall performance of the schools, the academic qualifications and the financial needs of the students and the teachers, and the financial needs of the schools, as well as the geographic spread and size of student population. In addition, student grantees under the program shall be enrolled in schools which have accredited programs or are applying for accreditation as may be recognized by the respective state assistance council. Also, preference shall be given to students whose family income is not more than 72,000 pesos or such amounts as may be determined by the respective councils as defined hereinafter. For purposes of this Act, programs of assistance to students and teachers of private post-secondary vocational and technical education or institutions and higher educational institutions shall likewise be extended to students and teachers of community colleges in degree and non-degree programs. Implementation of the program shall encourage students to undergo post-secondary vocational and technical and higher education courses in the same region where their families reside. Another one, the programs of assistance under this Act shall be extended only to students who are citizens of the Philippines. And the State Assistance Council with the DSCS, or the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports, the CHED, or the Commission of Higher Education, and TESDA, or the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, shall formulate measurement standards for the evaluation of the quality of courses as well as the standing and status of the recipient institutions. Within 5 years from the approval of this Act, the assistance shall be given to schools provided that the present allocation of the tuition fee and other income of the schools shall be used at the same proportion and allocation as provided by law. Section 4. Forms of Assistance. Assistance to private education shall consist of assistance to students and assistance to teachers. The following are forms of assistance to students in private education. Number 1. Tuition fee supplements for students in private high schools, including students in vocational and technical courses. Number 2. High school textbook assistance fund, provided that the textbook assistance per student in private high schools shall be determined by the council and shall not exceed what students in public high schools are provided on a per-student basis under a comprehensive textbook program of the Secondary Education Development Program, or the SEDP, Provided further that the textbook assistance shall be granted only to beneficiaries of tuition fee supplements and educational service contracting scheme provided in this Act. Number 3, expansion of the existing educational service contracting scheme or the ASC scheme. Number 4, the voucher system of the Private Education Student Financial Assistance Program or the PESFA. Number 5, scholarship grants to students graduating as valedictorians and salutatorians from secondary schools. Number 6, tuition fee supplements to students in private colleges and universities. And number 7, education loan fund. On the other hand, the following are forms of assistance to teachers and faculty in private education. Number 1 is the In-Service Training Fund or the Inset Fund for teachers in private high schools. And number 2, College Faculty Development Fund. Section 5, tuition fee supplements for students in private high schools. Number 1, financial assistance for tuition for students in private high schools shall be provided by the government through a voucher system in the following manner. For students enrolled in schools charging an amount as may be determined by the State Assistance Council, the government shall provide them with a voucher in such an amount as may be determined by the Council, provided that the government shall reimburse the vouchers from the schools concerned within 120 days from the close of the registration period. Number 2, assistance under Paragraph 1, Subparagraph A, shall be guaranteed to all private high schools participating in the program for a number of slots as of the effectivity of this Act, as the total number of students who availed of tuition fee supplements for school year 1997 to 1998, provided that the State Assistance Council may be in subsequent years determine additional slots and or additional participating high schools as may be deemed necessary. Section 6, High School Textbook Assistance Fund. There shall be established in the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports or DSCS a high school textbook assistance fund so that assistance on a per-student basis shall be given to students enrolled in private schools exclusively for the purchase of high school textbooks in support of the implementation of the Secondary Education Development Program, provided that the textbook assistance per student in private high schools shall be determined by the Council and shall not exceed what students in public high schools are provided on a per-student basis. Provided further that the textbook assistance shall be granted only to beneficiaries of tuition fee supplements and educational service contracting scheme provided in this Act. Section 7, Expansion of the existing educational service contracting or ESC scheme. Letter A, the Department of Education, Culture and Sports or the DECS shall continue to enter into contracts with private schools whereby the government shall shoulder the tuition and other fees of high school students who shall enroll in private high schools under this program. Letter B, the department shall also enter into contracts with private schools in communities where there are no public high schools, in which case the department shall shoulder the tuition and other fees of students who shall enroll in said private schools. Letter C, the amount of assistance to be given by the government under this section shall not exceed that determined as the per-student cost in public high schools. Letter D, the department shall fully pay the subsidized amount to participating schools not later than 180 days from the close of the registration period. Letter E, the amount of assistance shall be allocated and distributed among the 16 regions in proportion to the total population as well as the high school age population for the first school year, provided that starting school year 1998, an equalization scheme shall be implemented by the State Assistance Council. And letter F, the amount of assistance to private high schools participating in the program shall be guaranteed for a number of slots as of the effectivity of this Act as the number of students availing of educational service contracting assistance for school year 1997-1998, provided that the State Assistance Council may in subsequent years determine additional slots and or additional participating private high schools as may be deemed necessary. Section 8, or the assistance to college freshmen. This includes the following: A. The voucher system of private education student financial assistance or the PESPA program. Letter B. Tuition waiver. Letter C. Allowance for valedictorians. And letter D. Allowance for other honorees. For letter A, the voucher system of private education student financial assistance or the PESPA program, it states that the existing private education student financial assistance or the PESPA program, which covers degree and non-degree vocational or technical courses, shall be expanded so that all qualified enrolling first-year students can benefit from a scholarship plus an allowance. Such financial assistance shall be granted to deserving underprivileged students who shall be selected on the basis of family income, geographic spread, and results of competitive examinations to be given by the CHED for degree courses and the TESDA for non-degree vocational or technical courses in all secondary schools in coordination with the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports. The program shall be equitably allocated to provinces and cities in accordance with regional and national plans to priority courses as determined by the CHED and the TESDA. And for the purposes of this Act, an underprivileged student shall refer to a student whose gross income, if any, and that of the combined annual gross income of his or her parents do not exceed 72,000 pesos. Letter B, or the tuition waiver. It states that private post-secondary vocational and technical institutions and higher educational institutions shall provide for full or half tuition waivers for 5% of the entering freshmen, which shall include among others valedictorians and salutatorians of both public high schools and private high schools, provided that these valedictorians and salutatorians meet admission test of the schools concerned. Letter C, or the allowance for valedictorians. It states that it is subject to rules and regulations as may be promulgated by the State Assistance Council. Valedictorians referred to under subparagraph B, or the tuition waiver may, in addition to tuition waivers granted by the school concerned, be entitled to such allowances from the government as are provided to PESPA grantees provided they shall enroll in priority courses. And letter D, allowance for other honorees. In case the graduating class is composed of more than 250 students, all salutatorians and first honorable mention graduates thereof may also be entitled to the allowance granted to valedictorians under the preceding paragraph. Section 9, are the further assistance to students in private colleges and universities. It states that tuition fee supplements for students of private post-secondary vocational and technical institutions and higher educational institutions enrolled in priority course programs determined by the TESDA and the CHED shall be provided by the government through a voucher system in the following manner. For students in priority programs in schools charging an effective per unit tuition rate of such amount as may be determined by the State Assistance Council, the government shall provide the students with a voucher for the amount of tuition fees supplement determined by the State Assistance Council. Government assistance and tuition increases as described in this section shall be governed by the same conditions as provided under Section 5.2. Section 10, or the Education Loan Fund. It includes the following. A. Study Now, Pay Later Plan. There is hereby created a special fund to be known as the Students' Loan Fund to be administered by the CHED and the TESDA or upon delegation by the CHED by the Student Loan Fund Authority created under Republic Act No. 6014, which is hereby reinstituted pursuant to the terms of the same Republic Act, which shall be used to finance educational loans to cover matriculation and other school fees and educational expenses for book subsistence and board and lodging. Letter B. Amounts covering payments for tuition and other school fees shall be paid directly to the school concerned. Letter C. Any loan granted under this section shall be paid by the student debtor after he has finished the course or profession for which the proceeds of the loan was expended, but only after a period of 2 years from the time he has acquired an employment, provided, however, that interest at the rate of not more than 6% per annum shall accrue on the balance thereof. And letter D, Social Security Fund. The Social Security system shall make available low-interest educational loans to its members and to private educational institutions for school buildings and/or improvement of their plans and facilities. Section 11 is the limitation of this assistance under this Act, and it states that the right of any student to avail himself or herself of the benefits under this Act shall not apply if he or she fails for one school year in the majority of the academic subjects in which he or she has enrolled during the course of his or her study, unless such failure is due to some valid cause beyond his or her control. Section 12, or the In-Service Training Fund, or Inset Fund. This is one of the amended sections under Republic Act No. 8545, and it states that for the purpose of improving the quality of teaching in private secondary education, there is hereby established in the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports an Inset Fund to provide for the upgrading of knowledge and teaching competencies in critical subject areas and for the modernization of teaching techniques and strategies, including training in the use of computers and of other multimedia educational technologies to assist instruction, provided that the Inset Fund shall be available only to qualified licensed teachers in participating private high schools as determined by the State Assistance Council. Provided further that the amount of Inset Fund available to private secondary education shall not exceed that available to public secondary education on a per capita basis. Section 13, or the College Faculty Development Fund. For the purpose of improving the quality of teaching in private post-secondary vocational and technical institutions and higher educational institutions, there is hereby established in the TESDA and the CHED a College Faculty Development Fund to provide for scholarships for graduate degree and non-degree workshops or seminars for faculty members in private post-secondary vocational and technical institutions and higher educational institutions, provided that faculty member recipients of such scholarships shall serve as many number of years return service for every year of scholarship availed of as may be determined by the State Assistance Council in conformity with prevailing National Economic and Development Authority or the NEDA policies on return service of government scholars. The scholarship shall be in priority courses as determined by the TESDA and the CHED and cannot be awarded to promote or inhibit sectarian purposes. Section 14, or the Teacher Salary Subsidy Fund. This is also one of the additional sections or assistance program under Public Act No. 8545. It states that a teacher's salary subsidy fund is hereby established in the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports to grant government subsidy to teachers in private high schools participating in the programs of assistance provided in this Act, provided that the total monthly salary, which includes the subsidy to be received by such private high school teachers, shall not be more than 80% of the salary of his counterpart in the public sector, provided further that the amount of monthly subsidy shall not exceed the amount of any monthly salary increase that teachers in public high schools shall after the effectivity of this Act hereinafter receive, provided further that private high school teachers qualified to receive subsidy under this Act are duly licensed by the Professional Regulation Commission, provided further that the government shall provide them with a voucher for the salary subsidy which shall be reimbursed directly to the teachers within 60 days after the close of the school year upon submission of proof of qualification and actual teaching service in participating private high school, provided further that the present allocation out of increases from tuition and other income shall be maintained, provided finally that in case of insufficiency of funds, priority shall be given to married teachers supporting a family. Section 15, or the Program Administration Rules and Regulations. It defines different responsibilities of the following: the State Assistance Council, which is responsible for policy, guidance and direction, monitoring and evaluation of new and existing programs, and the promulgation of the rules and regulations, while the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports, the TESDA, and the CHED shall be responsible for the day-to-day administration and program implementation for the programs of assistance to private secondary education, post-secondary vocational and technical education, and higher education respectively. Likewise, it may engage the services and support of any qualified government or private entity for its implementation. The State Assistance Council, also known as the Council, shall be headed by the Secretary of Education, Culture, and Sports as chairperson, the chairperson of the CHED, and the Director General of the TESDA as co-chairpersons, with representatives from the National Economic and Development Authority or the NEDA, the Department of Budget and Management or the DBM, the Department of Science and Technology or the DOST, and representatives from duly organized nationwide associations of teachers, students, parents, and school administrators concerned with secondary, post-secondary vocational and technical education and higher education as members. The last 3 members shall be appointed by the Council upon the recommendation of the respective sectors for a term of 1 school year subject to reappointment for a maximum term of 4 school years. A representative each from the Committees of Education of both Houses of Congress shall be designated resource persons to the Council. It is also stated that the Council shall meet from time to time as the need arises to assess the effectivity of the programs and to ensure that the secondary schools, post-secondary vocational and technical institutions, and higher educational institutions where student recipients are enrolled continue to provide quality education. For this purpose, the Council shall establish criteria to determine which secondary schools, post-secondary vocational and technical institutions, and higher educational institutions may continue to enroll students and teachers or faculty as recipients of government assistance under this Act. Section 16 or the Appropriations. It states that the amount needed to implement these programs shall be provided for in the Annual General Appropriations Act for the year 1998. The appropriation of 1 billion pesos already appropriated under the General Appropriations Act of 1998 shall be used for this purpose. All funds appropriated for this purpose shall be constituted as a trust fund to be administered by the State Assistance Council, which shall be directly and automatically released to the different regional offices of the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports. Section 17 are the penalties. In case of violations of the provisions of this Act or the rules and regulations promulgated pursuant thereto by an institution, the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports, the TESDA, and the CHED, upon the recommendation of the Council, may bar the institution from participating in or benefiting from the programs of this Act and from other programs of the Department, without prejudice to administrative and criminal charges as may be filed against the school and or its responsible officers under existing laws. Section 18 or the Repealing Clause. It states that all laws and decrees, particularly Presidential Decree Numbers 932 and 1371, and such letters of instructions, rules, and regulations or parts thereof, which are inconsistent with this Act, are hereby repealed or modified accordingly. By the way, Presidential Decree Number 932 states that it is further democratizing educational opportunities, promoting the study now pay later plan, and specifying various schemes for its implementation. While Presidential Decree Number 1371 is an amending decree to certain sections of Presidential Decree Number 932, otherwise known as the Educational Assistance Act of 1976. Section 19 or the Separability Clause. If any provision of this Act is declared unconstitutional, the same shall not affect the validity and effectivity of the other provisions not affected thereby. Section 20 or the Effectiwty Clause. This Act shall take effect immediately upon its publication in English in an English newspaper and in Filipino in a Filipino newspaper, both of general circulation, provided that the implementation of new programs of assistance provided in this Act shall be effective in the school year of the succeeding fiscal year within which the appropriations necessary to implement the new program shall have been approved into law. Republic Act No. 8545 or the E-GASTPE Law or the Expanded Government Assistance to Student and Teachers of Private Education Law was approved last February 24, 1998. All data was taken from this reference. Thank you for listening and have a great day ahead.